Me personally, although I love these guys and like to see them, I like to have my alone time too. For the first little while, I'll spend quite a bit of time unpacking, and so that'll take up all my time. And so I won't have a lot of time to chit-chat like we have in the past. I don't like it. You need to be closer to the family. I didn't pick this house purposely because it was mild. I know you didn't. I know you didn't. But we just got to fix this. That's all. Hi, besties. Okay, so Meri Brown was on the podcast with Amy Robach and TJ Holmes. And in the second part, which was released yesterday, they asked her about this, where she stands in her relationships with the sister wives, what her relationship is like with, namely, I think Christine, because Christine's book has just come out, and where she is in the process, as far as like her family, and where she sees herself, and who she decides to speak to, and who she doesn't speak to. And Meri had an opportunity to really clear the air and respond to things that Christine said about her in her book. And instead she didn't say anything really about it, which I thought was very mature, honestly. As much as we like to hear the tea of what happens in these dynamics, we've seen so much of it already play out on their television. And we already know that they have this, tense relationship, and they don't like each other. And a lot of times, it's, well, you were mean to my kids. You were mean. You didn't want. You wanted my kids to not be in your space. You had rules. You were awful. I didn't like it, right? And those are fair and valid criticisms to have if you don't like someone. And those are fair and valid feelings to have about someone. But I realized when I was listening to Meri that a lot of people say that, she's been criticizing Christine about speaking out about the family or speaking out about everything, right? I think I understand better where she's coming from now. That's just let me just say that I'm trying to frame this, so I'm not being judgmental because I don't want to be judgmental of Christine, and I don't want to be judgmental of Meri. I want to be neutral, but I want to also be objective here. And Meri made a comment about how at this point in her life, there's too much water under the bridge for her and Christine to ever be friends. And she said the feeling is mutual, but she made clear that it's a mutual feeling, right? And I understand something that she said about Christine that kind of struck a nerve for me. And I don't dislike Christine. So this is not a bash, Christine. But in her interview, Meri mentioned that what she expects from a relationship and what she looks for in a friend, she doesn't think that Christine is capable of. And she also feels like what Christine is looking for and wants in a friend or in a relationship isn't what she has. And so they don't meet in the same place. Check this out. So you and Christine are good. Now don't talk. Okay, that's much different from good. Is there? Have you? I can't. But there's on my part, I don't know about her. On my part, there's no hate. I just don't choose to have her in my life. It's not healthy. And it's not safe for me emotionally. Will she agree that you're the same for her? You're not emotionally healthily? Yeah, I think so. I think just because we have had some really good times, but I think our values just don't align. I know our values don't align. There's certain things that I want and I need in a relationship, and she absolutely doesn't have that. And I believe the same thing for her. She needs and wants certain things in a relationship, and I don't have that for her. So for us, I think it's just best to we can be cordial to each other if we run into each other. It's not like we're going to scratch each other's eyes out or anything like that. But we just on a daily basis, we're not going to be. Meri was given an opportunity to trash Christine, and she won't. Their relationship has been tense for years, and even given a chance to say something negative, she doesn't. When she does speak, she made something very clear, and that she and Christine are not safe for each other, and she has no desire to pursue a relationship with her. The statement, not safe, is very heavy, and it's not casual. To me, it means that there's very real pain and mistrust and a history that Meri doesn't want to gloss over just for the sake of appearances. and she doesn't want to say something that she will regret. And I don't blame her for feeling the way that she does. Here's the thing about Christine, and I know this is unpopular to say out loud because she has a huge fan base, but she does have a pattern of avoiding accountability for her role in these relationships. She criticized Meri endlessly in her book, on the show, in interviews, and she's never once stopped to say, hey, maybe I made this harder for her too. Christine walked into a marriage where Meri was the first wife. Meri had built the home. She carried the emotional weight of being the original partner, and suddenly she had to share. That's a huge adjustment for Meri. But Christine has never really acknowledged that reality, and she's never said, I recognize that my joining the family caused Meri pain, and she has every right to set expectations and boundaries in her own home. Instead, she's often mocked or belittled Meri, sometimes taunting her over the fact that she only had one child. And Christine even admitted to taunting Meri about only having one child and becoming sister wives. And in an old tell-all that has been scrubbed from the internet, she admits that she told Meri that she hoped she didn't get pregnant. The kind of behavior wasn't just unfair. I thought at times she could be cruel to Meri. And it seems to highlight a bigger pattern with Christine that she presents herself as kind and bubbly, but she's admitted herself that she can be nice to your face and then talk behind your back. And that kind of two-faced communication doesn't build trust. It actually destroys it. And when you create that kind of environment, people stop feeling safe around you, which explains why Meri said Christine is unsafe for her. If you can't trust what you tell that person and what their response will be, how would you know that what she's saying is honest and truthful? Now, when we look at Meri, is she warm and fuzzy? She's not. She can be very blunt. She can be very harsh in her delivery, and she doesn't always sugarcoat things. But what I've always respected about Meri is that she will reflect on her role in her situations and what she's done and what she can improve. She knows she's not perfect. She admits her flaws. She understands her role and conflicts, and she doesn't try to hide it behind a smile. She's been dumped on by every member of the family at one point or another, and she's still there. She was still there for years, showing a willingness to face the hard truths and to face the reality and a commitment to the family. And that's really not easy. And I think a lot of people forget how much she carried by being the first wife, and that she was the one who had to absorb the shock of every new wife entering that marriage. This is where I see Christine's biggest blind spot in this relationship, is that she talks about her pain and her struggles and her victories, but she never wants to really go deeper than that, and she doesn't really acknowledge the pain she might cause other people along the way. She doesn't acknowledge that her bubbly, joking exterior can often cover for mean-spirited comments or gossip behind the scenes. And I think that's why I view Christine as an example of toxic positivity. She's very smiley. She's always laughing. She's always on the surface, but nothing ever feels very real to me. It always feels very superficial. And for me, in a relationship, I can't be in a relationship with someone that's superficial. I want to have hard conversations. I want to have deep talks. I want to know that person beyond that superficial level. And if you're someone like Meri who is willing to go there, and you're with someone like Christine who doesn't want to go there, and Christine admits she's non-confrontational, that can be challenging. It would also be challenging to find common ground. Because if Meri can admit where she failed, Christine would also have to acknowledge where she failed too. And maybe that's just not possible. And sometimes I think I can relate with Meri, because I myself can be blunt. I can be direct. I don't beat around the bush. But I also know that when I love hard, and I have my friends' backs, and I'll do what I need for the people in my life that I love. And I know what it's like to be painted as like the outcast and the villain in a family. And I think in a lot of ways she has been at times the most honest about what her own shortcomings are and dumped on and piled on. And then, like, people in her life aren't apologizing to her. I think it's fair that they not force a fake friendship just because it would look good for the cameras or make fans happy. I think protecting her space and her peace is good after everything she's been through. I think she's earned that. I understand that fans are. They rally around Christine because they see her as she escaped Cody. She has independence. She's empowering other women, and I don't want to take that away from Christine, right? She deserves to be free and to be happy. But I think it's fair to say that, like, while Meri may have taunted her, Christine dished it back. And I think that bubbly exterior enables her to not have to deal with the deeper issues. And that's why Christine at times feels fake and Meri feels more real to me. Even though Meri won't trash Cody and Robin per se, I feel like that's not out of a place of protecting them, but just out of a place of protecting her own peace and not wanting to air out her grievances publicly. And you have to recall that they are on a public show, and so they don't have to publicly trash people simply because they can. They just represent two very different approaches to conflict. And I think that Christine hides behind positivity as kind of a coping mechanism, and Meri will face it head on. And at times that abrasiveness and her yelling and the fighting or that control she has is her coping mechanism. I just don't see them coming together, I guess, and they're not safe for each other. And that doesn't mean that equally Christine's bad or Meri's bad. It's just that they don't work as friends. And, there was a lot of years that I thought, where I was like separating myself from the religious structure. It's like, okay, I don't believe in the teachings. I don't believe in like that. Whatever it is that they were promoting, especially even in the polygamy aspect of it. But we're still a family. To me, it didn't matter the fact that however we came together, we are a family now. And even though I didn't believe in the church structure, I didn't believe that, well, just because we don't believe in that, we should break up a family. And so for me, I felt like, and I worked for a long time, and I think that Janelle and Christine did as well, work to make that family structure work. It's not healthy to be in a relationship where you're not loved, you're not valued. When you're told that, it was all a lie and that he never loved you and everything was fake anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, well, okay, then that's not good for me. It feels really good to hear her say this because I don't know if you remember, if you have listened to this podcast that I've had on this topic for years, but one of the reasons why Meri was alienated from everyone and sort of pushed out was because she was leaving the religion and she was being shunned by the family. And they didn't talk about that on the show. But a lot of the reasons why they were like all coming down on her publicly and sort of piling on her was because she wasn't adhering to the rules of the cult. And so she became what's called unsafe and worldly. And Cody was basically behind the scenes, making it seem like Meri couldn't be trusted because she was allowing these outside influences into her life that she would then sort of trickle down and expose to the other people in the family. And that because she was sort of, not willing to play the game the way that Christine was. So if you remember when they would always do these promotions of polygamy, Meri was not as vocal as Christine. It was really Christine and Cody that were like the vocal ones about promoting polygamy, and she would go along with it, but it was never her thing. And I understand now why she has hurt and pain, because she was trying to keep it together, because she loved her child, didn't want to separate her child from their siblings. She made a commitment even though she no longer believed in the faith, and she wanted to honor that commitment, but then also was stuck in a contract with the show and was forced to do all of these storylines, even though she had nothing really to do with the family. And because she was more willing to be open and honest, she got a lot more airtime than the others because she was willing to be more open and honest and, the catfishing stuff and exploring new relationships and going to school. she got more airtime because she was willing to expose more of her life than the others. And so others on the show didn't like that she got so much airtime because they said she wasn't a part of the family. But no one else was willing to sort of open up their lives the way she was. So there was a lot of frustration on that side. But she was being dejected and thrown out because she didn't believe in the faith anymore. That was really what the truth was. And so what she's saying there is, I removed myself from the faith and I have different values than they did. She's obviously has different values than Cody and Robin do. If you read Christine's book, it's kind of sad if you think about it, because it seems like they were both losing their religion around the same time. And they could have just spoken to each other and been a support to one another, but they didn't because they couldn't trust each other. And they both faced hardships because they were both being punished for losing their religion and being, quote, UN, quote, unsafe. Because once you lose your religion and you expose your thoughts to the world and that world, you're dangerous. So I guess, she again has an opportunity to be critical and she won't. And I can respect that as much as I want to hear the tea. I like hearing more about the religion aspect and that side more so than the fights they had. But I'm a nerd like that. We've done interviews or just, random people on social media. I don't know how you can't be jealous. Nobody said I wasn't. Nobody said I wasn't. I've been very jealous. I've had a lot of emotions and I haven't necessarily handled my emotions. Nobody does. Nobody does. You do the best that you can in the situation that you're in. And what is it? When you know better, you do better, and it's we don't. I didn't handle emotions, correct. And I feel like I handle my emotions better now. I have tools now. If I need a scream, if I need, I'm still going to scream, but it's going to be in my car alone rather than ask somebody. You know what I mean? In this interview, she had mentioned that she and Cody met and got married within months, and it was really not enough time for them to know each other. And that if she would have known him longer, they might not have gotten married. And that long term, their relationship just wouldn't have worked because of their two polar opposite personalities. And then she's in a system of polygamy where she's, everything is her fault. She's got to keep sweet. And then she's expected to keep all of the other wives in line for Cody and then not feel jealous. And then obviously she's lashing out at others around her. And Christine made a comment in her book that even if you feel those feelings, you should still be kind. And I thought, yeah, you're right. You should be kind. But sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it's impossible to be kind, especially when you're dealing with what they deal with in polygamy. And I think I would feel out of control in a situation like this, Meri. Cum seems to me to be someone that likes routines and likes to know what to expect. And I'm the exact same way. She seems to be someone that thrives in an environment that's organized, and she has expectations of how people behave, and she sets clear boundaries, and not everyone likes to have boundaries. And I think as much as they come down on her for being like that, I think that was a survival technique for her. And I also think if you can't respect someone else's boundaries and you want to invade their privacy and go through their house because it's inconvenient for you to have to go outside, I think you're creating a grievance where none should exist. Quite honestly, that house was 3 separate apartments. It was never a shared family home. They always lived separately. And so this idea that they just mixed and mingled throughout the house on an everyday basis is just not the reality of how that house was set up. It's not a reality of how that family ever really existed. And I understand very clearly why she's been the way that she's been. Does it justify the way she acts? No, but it's an explanation. And she also mentioned that she doesn't want to read Christine's book because she doesn't want to get angry at the way Christine portrays a situation, because she said Christine is entitled to have the feelings that she feels and express her feelings in a way, and share her perspective of what she went through without her saying, oh, she's lying or that's not what happened or her trying to defend herself because she said that's her perspective of what she saw and I might not see it the same way. And she explained how like two people can be in the same room and see a situation completely different. And so she doesn't want to like rain on her parade and get into the thick of it and invalidate Christine's experience. And I respect that too. So overall, I like the approach that Meri's been taking the last year or so. I've seen so much growth in her, and I think she's becoming a good outspoken voice for the people that follow her and listen to her. I don't think she's someone for everyone. I respect that Christine and Meri exist in different places. I think that there's distrust there reasonably, and I think that, I don't know, I understand why Meri doesn't trust Christine, and I understand that. I'm proud of her for explaining that she was being shunned, and that's really the root of so much of her problems with other people. When she says values, she's saying I was being shunned and being called the bad person because I didn't believe like they did. She was being cast out. Now Christine is not the one to believe. And so she's kind of starting to feel it a little bit, but it's something Meri's been experiencing for years, so they're in different places. I don't know if that makes sense, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye besties.